It was Insane Clown Posse at the Myriad in an exhibition hall on February 12th of 2000. Now, you probably should have moved it to a different room.
I was just a worker. I was, I mean, at that point, my promoting gig was up for a second.
So the previous Insane Clown Posse show was at Will Rogers, correct?
Right.
And it did not happen.
Correct.
And then this is the second time you guys booked them to come through.
Yes.
Obviously, they're much bigger now, being at the Myriad, even though those exhibition halls.
That was when they had Let's Go All the Way, and they were signed to Hollywood Records until they found out that they were Wicked Clowns and Dark Carnival.
And Hollywood Records, for people who don't
Hollywood
know, was owned by
Records,
Disney.
Yes, owned by Disney. They wrote in them a big fat check, and that's how Psychopathic Records became about.
Just to get
get rid of them.
Wow.
Because they didn't, I mean, now they'd probably welcome them with open arms.
Oh, absolutely they would.
You know?
If hindsight's 20/20. So let's talk about this show because it's the second time an Insane Clown Posse show that you were involved with did not happen.
Correct.
So we're bringing in our fact checker and historian Jeff Browning.
Well, he was the man who was actually the promoter rep for the show, and so all damages or all complaints or whatever all went on his deal, his eyes, and he was the guy. You know, but
and you were probably happy as hell about that.
Well,
for
you know
once.
what? I was just trying to make a living and do something, you know. But here we go again, chaos, and you know, like Jeff said earlier, the hall was packed. It was at the Myriad. First off, it's the wrong location.
So you guys set this up the night before, like the Myriad is a union room. You have to pay union stagehands, and you can't just go in at any time and set things up.
You can now because it's a right to work state, but back then, no.
Right. Back then, it was very different.
And Jay, they had an event in all three of the side halls.
Up.
There you go. Yeah.
They had an event in all three of the side halls. So not only was there an event in the main room, but all three of the side halls. So they come in the night before and set everything up for everybody. It wasn't just the clown show.
So there was probably either Blazers hockey or Cavaliers basketball or something going on. And you said there was a Fellowship of Christian Athletes event going on and a wedding going on.
That was in the Great Hall.
And the clowns.
Right.
So tell me why this show did not happen, Jeff.
Well, it was all going really smooth. We had it all totally set up. We were like within probably hour and a half of doors, and the band showed up, and for their dinner buyout, they were gonna, day of show, you give the bands money, and they go and eat. And so they came in and got their, and as the clowns were looking at the building, they've decided, and the stage was set about halfway up in the side hall room. And they look at it.
So there's a lot of space behind the stage.
Absolutely.
Yes. A lot of space. And so they wanted the stage scooted up closer so that it would look like there was more people in there. It's a visual thing. And I told them there's no way. We're an hour to the doors, and we can't even touch the stage. Even the people that I hired could not move anything. It's a union hall. You have to wait for the union people to come back. And so then they got the idea, well, let's put the buses behind the stage. So they wanted to use the buses as a backdrop. Well, you're in the middle of downtown. Like I said,
I think that's the first time I've ever seen a bus wrapped.
They were cool looking buses. I'll give them that.
And the thing is, they probably could have done that had they advanced that and scheduled a time to pull it in there and all of that.
Right. There's procedures you go through. And all I would have had to do was ask the fire marshal, and the fire marshal would have said, well, we need to bring it in whatever time and make sure that there's no the exhaust. There would have been some little thing that had to be done, but yeah, it could be allowed.
It could be.
Many concerts. I've seen many concerts at the Myriad where they would park the trucks inside the building. It's not that big a deal. It's a big deal an hour before doors with everything else in the building sold out, and the answer was just absolutely no. And so they decided, well, then we won't have a show. Well, the ticket takers were in place. The
Crowd was outside,
absolutely
ready to get in.
But Max, even though this wasn't your show and you weren't the face of the show per se, you're still involved in the show.
Right.
Oh yeah, he's working.
Yeah.
He's working the show like all of us are.
Yeah.
So what I found ironic is these shows are basically a month apart. And this is the second time in a month, New Millennium, that you've got a show with a band either wearing masks or makeup, and the show's canceled, and there's a riot on your hands.
Yeah, 2 of them. This one wasn't as tense as the Slipknot one, but like Jeff said, it was pretty intense because, for one, those kids, once they got the news that their band wasn't going to play, then they turned into heathens like most juggies are, and proceeded to try to trash the place. Like the circus had been in town, and they had hay bales around the Cox or the Myriad or whatever you want to call it. They took those hay bales, was throwing all that hay in the
fountains.
fountains.
They don't have fountains there anymore.
But these had water, So that,
water
and then you're just looking at mayhem, and Jeff's got a great story about a kid who attacked a cop in clown makeup.
Absolutely.
You want to tell that story?
Most stories like this seem far-fetched,
oh, listen,
but
I got 2 eyes that I see.
I've been to enough ICP shows that I've seen this happen.
Hey, I've seen a lot of shit happen at ICP shows, man. But this one was, you got to remember, this one was our first real time in it, like having the band in the building.
We were close.
So
we were within an hour.
The Will Rogers show, it canceled, but it didn't even get close to opening.
They never even stepped in the state.
No.
Okay. So this one, there's people lined up down the street ready to get in. Doors almost
we're good
open.
to go. Merch is set up. The ticket takers are there. Box office is open. Radio stations in place. Everyone
How
is
are
there.
ticket sales?
For there, it was,
I really don't remember what we were at.
I don't. It didn't blow out, but like I said, from the word go, the whole idea, venue, the whole place, this was the wrong place for it.
Now, one thing that we talked about, which is why we wanted to bring you on, Jeff, a lot of people don't realize when it comes to doing shows and when you're doing them, especially renting rooms to do shows, they're not your rooms. A lot of times you're required to carry the event insurance policy.
Every time.
Yeah, every time. With at least $1 million cap on it, if not more.
And there are certain bands that there were maybe only one insurance company that would actually write a policy for those bands.
There's a list.
Misfits, Marilyn Manson, Insane Clown Posse. So, it's those.
Jerry Lee Lewis, because he would like the piano on fire.
And premiums for those shows are much more expensive than a normal event policy.
Absolutely.
So you're this far into this gig, cancellation just announced, and this young Juggalo loses his shit on this cop.
Well, the promoter and I are sitting in David Fitzgerald. We're sitting in the office of the guy that runs the venue, and we're trying to minimize the damage. I mean, you still have to pay all the bills. Everybody showed up to do the job, even though the show never played.
The ticket takers, the ushers, the security guards,
exactly.
the labor, the advertising.
It's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's not their fault it didn't play, but they got to get paid. the cops and stuff, you still have to pay them. Even though they didn't do anything, you still have to pay them a 4-hour minimum. So and also, we still have to pay rent on the room, even though we're not having the show.
Well,
all these expenses.
And you've still got to do loadout and pay for the loadout.
And
Absolutely.
It's also the nature of the business, because the fact of the matter is they leave. We live here. We have to, if we want to do another show, you got to pay. If you get known as paying, ain't nobody going to rent you nothing.
Yeah, and we didn't have 3 or 4 Myriads. There's just one Myriad.
Right.
So if you got crossways with the Myriad,
Oklahoma.
it's like you couldn't go to the other big venue because we didn't have another big venue. That was it.
Civic Center.
Exactly. But
And who's going to allow the clowns in there?
And here again, so we're
the best they ever sounded.
So we're in the office trying to negotiate this down and see if we can minimize. Is there any way to cut any of these expenses? And and as we're doing this, like Max was saying, they're out there throwing bales of hay and Fago in the water features outside.
Chicken nut.
And and here again, there's Fellowship of Christian Athletes in one side hall room. There's a wedding in the other side hall room, and there's a sports in the main hall. So. Anyway, so this cop comes in. I can't remember his name, but he did all the shows down there. He comes in and he's huffing and puffing and out of breath, and he's got clown makeup all over his uniform. And I turned around and it's funny because I remember I was sitting there staring at the water feature on the guy's desk at the Myriad, and he's sitting there rubbing his head saying, "This is so expensive. This is going to cost you guys so much money."
Yeah,
and it's just letting us know that you're really going to pay for this mistake. And then here comes the cop covered in all this makeup and stuff, huffing and puffing, and I turned around and said, "So what happened to you?" And he said, "One of your little blankety blanking clowns attacked me." I'm like, "Do what?" He says, "He attacked me." I said, "So where is he?" He says, "He's sitting outside the door."
In handcuffs.
And I was like, "I got to go see this." So we walk out there, and here's this guy sitting there leaning up against the wall, kid. He couldn't have been, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. He's crying.
Snuck out. Didn't he sneak out?
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So his clown makeup is running and stuff, and his I think he had
a little bit of buyer's remorse.
Exactly. He looked like puddles, his the makeup was running and everything. And I said, So what's your problem? He says, "You don't understand. This is my favorite band, and they canceled." I said, "So they canceled. You thought you'd attack a cop?" And the cop says, "No, that's not what happened." He was over, and they had just started remodeling the Myriad. They remodeled one side of the Myriad, and he said, "So this kid is up there beating on those big plate glass windows, and I told him to stop." And he turned around and looked at me and got this weird look in his eyes and charged me. I started laughing, and the kid starts crying even harder, and his makeup's running.
Then he tells.
Then he says, "So." I said, "So your favorite band canceled. You thought you'd go beat on the plate glass window. The man standing here with a badge and a gun tells you to stop, and you decide to attack him."
You attack him.
"Yes, sir." I said, "And you are dressed in clown makeup, and you're getting ready to go to the city jail wearing clown makeup." I said, "Think about that a second. Think about what that's going to be like when you get down there." I said, "Because they haven't seen a clown down there in a long time." He starts crying even louder. And the cop says, "Oh, it's even worse than that." I said, "How can it be worse?" Well, he told his dad that he was staying over at his buddy's house, and his buddy told his dad they're staying over, and said, so his dad is on his way down here. He says, "Do you know what his dad does for a living?" I have no idea. "He's a drill sergeant." I'm like, "Oh, really?" So the kid starts crying even more. I said, "So you got a choice.
You got
a choice of waiting on Dad to come here or going down to the city jail dressed like a clown." "Yes, sir."
At what point did he beg you to send him to jail?
Oh, it was not up to me. The cop was mad. He had makeup all over his uniform. His hair was messed up. The guy was going to jail. Well, or so he thought. I think when the dad got there, I think they worked
Let
something
him
out.
into his arms, but I mean, it was some of the craziest. It's just like you know, and you say that. So here we go. You got 2 riots on your hands, you know, and me and Jeff doing shows, and it's like, not that we want to say this, but you know, it's kind of like what the norm of what's going on right now, and you're kind of having to ask yourself, what the fuck did I do? You know?
How much did the negativity and the trash talk increase after this?
You know-
I mean, you're only a month from Slipknot, and that's when it got real crazy.
You know, for me, it wasn't. It was pretty much just you know. Sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and let it all happen. But the worst thing that it did for Oklahoma City in general, in the metal market, clown makeup, mask, whatever, was cancellations hurt. And you know, then you got one where you're not able to give the money back. The other one, I think we had to wait on giving the money back. You know, but you got 2 in a row. So
No, it postponed, so they held the money.
Right.
And so the only way for it to play, we had to book another show.
Right.
Was the only way those kids could get their money back. They had to
then they could turn in their ticket if they didn't want to go.
because there's a difference between cancellation and postponing a show. Still is to this very day. You know,
As we learned through COVID.
All the way.
Exactly.
That's why there's
Exactly.
shows that played out, you know.
Like those shows that were booked 3 years ago, 4 years ago, some of those
Motley Crue
are still
The tour.
just now starting
yeah.
or getting ready
They're
to start in
playing, you know?
2023.
Judas
I mean,
Priest.
you got
There's a bunch of
you got Matchbox 20 that's not coming till 2023 that had you still have the ticket, you know.
And there was going to be Matchbox 2020.